Hi everybody, I'm Lynn Schneider, and joining me today at Shell Point TV, I've got a very interesting conversation with Marge Lee, one of our residents here at Shell Point, and of course you recognize this gentleman, Martin Chappell, our president here. Today we're going to be talking about the new Arts Center, and we've got a lot of information to share with you, and we appreciate you joining us. So, you know, Marge, I thought the perfect place for us to start, as they always say, is the very beginning. And how did we get here? Where did this all start?
Well, it started about 3 years ago when we moved to Shell Point, and I walked into a craft show for the first time, and I saw the wonderful talent of our Shell Point artists. And I began looking around, and I was surprised that we didn't have a gallery venue here to show this art. And so I just thought, we need to show this. And I was talking to the folks down at the Byrne Davis Center and in an event, and I said, why don't we have an exhibition of the work of Shell Point artists? And he said, Shell Point has artists? And I said, oh yes, they do, and we do. And that's how it all started. And we had Ageless Creativity as a result. That opened in February of this past year, and it broke all attendance records at the Davis Art Center. People came, they were excited to see everything we have at Shell Point, and that's how it all began.
That really was a spectacular show, and I think it really did open everyone's eyes to not only the caliber of art that's being created here, but the diversity of art, and then also the number of artists who were participating. So, take us forward a few more months, and then what?
Well, a few more months. Part of the exhibition was when the Shell Point Board of Directors went to see Ageless Creativity. As well as Martin went to see it, and many of our residents. And people began saying, gosh, we want more. We want to see more of this. And that's where the inspiration for the Art Center came from.
So Martin, when the idea first came up about doing something for the arts, some kind of an arts center, where did that take you?
I distinctly remember a conversation I had with one particular resident, and we were discussing adding space or converting existing space, possibly next to the Resident Activity Center, to expand our offerings for the arts. And I thought she would be so impressed and pleased by our expansion, and she said, Martin, you're not dreaming big enough. And that was a very humbling moment for me because I think of myself as being a bit of a visionary. And she just said there's so much more potential than just a simple expansion of what's existing. And so she began to encourage me and others to think about a dedicated space that would be solely dedicated to the arts. And I think that's the ideology of how then the Art Center was formed.
So right away you probably had to do some research and see if there was potential to bring an art center to Shell Point. And it seems to me like right away there was some resident support just building for this idea.
That's right, and actually it started about 2013, and a group of resident artists had already gotten together at that time and decided that an art center would be a good idea. And they did some initial studies. They talked to all the art groups what would be necessary for this art center. And it's not just a display space. It's an area where the residents and the artists could work and expand their talents. So some of that groundwork had been done. So we inherited that, and that was a great start to begin talking about what would be in this art center. How would it look? And we have expanded it now to include the performing arts and the literary arts as well. So they started out with visual, and now we've got this wonderful facility that's going to be so used by all the residents, I think, at Shell Point.
Which is really going to be incredible. Now, as the planning was happening, and of course this was all coming together very quickly, I think at one point there was some discussion about putting a fitness center into the building. I know it was taken from a one-story to a two-story. Martin, tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. The original concept was a pure art center, all geared and dedicated towards the arts. And over the gallery section, it was a one-story building. And as we were looking at it, we said, gosh, would it be affordable? Would it be good stewardship to use a second floor and to use that space potentially for a fitness center to expand the scope of that particular amenity? And so we added that initially, and I think through more thoughtful evaluation and through revisiting that the core part of this building is that of an art center, we've eliminated that as part of our planning. And so now that space is going to be used for other purposes.
Well, Marge, there's going to be so much in this new building. Tell us what we'll find in the Arts Center.
Well, forgive me for using a prop, but there is so much I need to do this. Let me open it up and walk our viewers through the floor plan. Let's start with the first floor. People will enter on the grand atrium, and straight ahead of them will be the Connie Brown Hall. That will be a wonderful auditorium that will seat 300 people and be a terrific venue for performances of all sorts. Over to the right will be the bistro, where people can get a cup of coffee with their friends and just relax. Next to that is a gift shop, where we will offer artwork from our artists and such. Going back into that wing, we have the quilting studio. We also have the glass studio there and the pottery studio. And the pottery folks now have an outdoor kiln, so it doesn't get so darn hot in their studio. Over on the left side of the first floor, we have our wonderful new art gallery. And that will be a space where we can literally divide up into 4 separate galleries if we want to. The idea here is that there will always be something new to see in the art gallery every month, a new exhibition to see. And behind that, I should have mentioned, attached with the Connie Brown Hall, we have dressing rooms, which is an amenity that performers, especially on the road, are looking to have. So that will help us be competitive in that environment. And then surrounding on the outside, we should mention the wonderful sculpture garden. I think that will be a lovely contemplative space that residents will enjoy. So going upstairs, we have, first of all, surrounding our fabulous kinetic sculpture that will be hanging from the ceiling, we have the sculpture overlook. So people can walk around and look at a kinetic. Kinetic meaning it's always moving. It will be motorized and be an interesting sculpture to look at. Over to the left, we now have our spaces that we have transformed into the literary arts area. So the literary lounge, the literary arts studio, a classroom, the craft studio. Next to that is the dance and theater space. That's going to be a very interesting space because it's a very large space. When it's not being used for dance, it can be used for classroom space, for small performances, open mic poetry readings. I think residents will really enjoy that space. Then over in the wing to the right, we do have the painting studio, we have the photography studio, a mat room, which is where artists can go to get their things framed and matted. And then we have practice rooms for our musicians. So we have 2 individual practice rooms there, and as well we have a practice room where ensembles can practice. We also have another meeting room here. We have the board room, which will seat 18 people. That's another nice meeting spot for Shell Point. And we've recently added, just adjacent to that, the collector's gallery. And this will be a gallery where we will show the collections of our residents on a revolving basis. So I'm thinking every month will we have featuring a different residence collection on that wall. So that'll be a fun space. So lots in this fitness center, something for everyone, and we're just looking forward to all the residents coming in and enjoying this wonderful space.
Thank you so much for joining us today to talk about this, to answer some of those questions, and thank you for joining us to discuss what's new and what's happening with our new Arts Center project. And we will be rerunning this program frequently for those who didn't catch it the first time, and you can direct your friends and neighbors to watch it here on Shell Point TV.